In Parshas Bamidbar, we learn about the Leviim and their specific roles in disassembling the Mishkan and carrying it around from encampment to encampment until eventually the Jews would reach Eretz Yisrael. Specifically, the Bnei Kahas, the children of Kahas, were charged with carrying the holiest vessels of the Mishkan, the Mizbeachs, the Aron, etc. Yet, there was a necessary step that had to happen before they carried those vessels, which was the Kohanim, the high priests or the priests, which were at a higher spiritual level than the Leviim. They had to go in and wrap up those kelim, those vessels, in specific wraps of tachash skin and of tchelas, in order to make sure that they're wrapped and hidden, and then the Leviim could carry them. And the Parsha ends off with telling us, not only were the Leviim themselves not allowed to wrap up those kelim, the Kohanim had to do it, but they weren't even allowed to watch this wrapping happening. In fact, this was an obligation that their life depended on. If they would watch these kelim being wrapped and packed up in their sheaths or in their packaging, then they would die. So what's the big fear? What exactly are we so scared of with the Leviim watching these kelim getting wrapped up? And the answer is that not everyone can watch something holy leave its pedestal, become mundane, and then be unpacked and put back and face it with the same holiness. A lot of times our approach to something holy, naturally, something holy means untouchable, unquestionable, mysteriously at a distance and exalted above me. But when I'm called upon to help travel with that or to help pack it up for traveling, then naturally it brings it down towards mundane and close to my life. And then to re-see it again as something holy, fresh, and exalted becomes very difficult. That was the fear of the Leviim. And this is a necessary fear, or this is a necessary step in all of our spiritual journeys. Sometimes a Baal Tshuva would see a religious lifestyle at a distance and look at, oh my gosh, beautiful family life and beautiful strength of the community, how holy it is and what they stand for. And then when they join the community, maybe they see things that don't look as pretty and don't look as beautiful. Does that take away the holy truths they saw before? No. But not everyone is able to climb back from the sincerity and the beauty that they saw at step one, once they see some ugliness, and then to re-see at the end of the day, under all layers, what this community still stands for. Or in learning, we grow up as children, learning things that we religiously believe to be very true. But then maybe some questions come up, or we start challenging it. And oftentimes we're scared of facing those questions because if I'm actually going to take that question, or I'm going to engage the conversation with a questioner, how can I now see this? If I'm going to take down the Aron, if I'm going to wrap it up, how can I unpack it and see it with the same reverence? How can I start questioning and challenging if now I'm going to lose seeing it as holy? There's an interesting story of the Rebbe Rashab who asked Reb Chanya Morozov to be his secretary, a very special chassid, and he didn't want to. He said, I'm the Rebbe's chassid. If I become your secretary, that's going to lose my, how can I be a chassid if I'm going to be so used to the Rebbe's presence? Help the Rebbe take care of his bills. If there's a doctor and he needs help the Rebbe physically with a doctor, get examined, etc., how can I remain a chassid? And this is the challenge of really getting close and really getting, bringing something holy with you into mundane life. Yet this is a necessary step in the Aron moving from place to place. The Aron needed to go from the desert and it needed to go into Eretz Yisrael. Now, this took 40 journeys, and part of the journeying is it needed to be disassembled, and it needed to be reassembled, and it needed to be covered. This is a necessary step in our lives. We go from childhood to adulthood for a reason. And oftentimes, the beautiful, fresh soul, we want Mashiach now, everything we stood for and believed so purely, we start challenging, or starts getting covered up in us, and we don't feel it as sincerely. And sometimes we get stuck in that. It's hard for us to reopen that and to still hold on to what I always held on to without cynicism or without questioning, and to always see it in the back of my mind as having been made mundane. But the trick is, and the necessity of spiritual growth is, that we're able to challenge what we need to challenge, but we're not challenging cynically. We're challenging in order to integrate and make spirituality from being stagnant and at a distance to be able to permeate and take over this physical world. To do that, it takes disassembling and reassembling. To do that, it takes packaging up and carrying it around. That's why our soul comes into our body, which is our soul's package. It comes into our Yetzer Hara, our evil inclination, which is our soul's package. In order to take it from being something spiritual, exalted, and otherworldly, to help it travel the Midbar and eventually make the Midbar and turn the Midbar into Eretz Yisrael. Now, also, I believe that in the past several years, many Frum Jews have been challenging, let's say, different chinuch styles and chinuch systems and certain paradigms that we've always had. And we start wondering, and that's not a bad thing. Mashiach's about to come, so the way we see things in Galus is different than the ways we see things in Geula. So that means sometimes the Aron and the Holy Kalim need to be disassembled and need to be reassembled in a new, fresh Geula-dik way, and that's the only way the Aron travels from point A to its ultimate destination in point B. Have a great Shabbos.